Did you know that the Hadzabe of East Africa are as racially distinct from their Bantu neighbors as Europeans are from East Asians? Even though they live in close proximity and share a similar phenotype that is often classified as quote-unquote monoracially black. In fact, the Hadzabe people are genetically closer to Swiss than they are to Bantus or West Africans. Let that sink in for a moment. This single fact alone shatters the myth that Africa is genetically uniform. Africa is not just diverse, it is the most genetically diverse continent on Earth by a massive margin. And yet, this reality is almost never talked about in mainstream conversations. Africa alone contains at least 6 distinct racial groups that are indigenous and basal to the continent, plus additional lineages that are native to Africa but form outside of it, such as the East Eurasian Austronesian ancestry of the Malagasy and the layered West Eurasian ancestries found among modern Kushites, Ethio-Semites, Amazigh, and Egyptian populations. But today, we are going to focus exclusively on African lineages that develop within Africa itself, because the world still insists on flattening them all under the vague and misleading label of Black Africans or Sub-Saharan Africans. This is because African people are deeply underrated when it comes to anthropological attention and serious discussion. For decades, anthropology in Africa has been neglected, and before that, it was used to justify the dehumanization of African people. Now, because of historical guilt, political discomfort, and a deeply Eurocentric lens through which knowledge has been produced, African anthropology has been swept under the rug, simplified, or treated as an afterthought. Many Africans themselves, and much of the African diaspora, grow up without knowing the true depth of their own histories. That is why I wrote my book, World Encyclopedia of African People. I did my very best to create something comprehensive, respectful, and unapologetically detailed. This book is available on Amazon as a paperback and a Kindle ebook, and it goes far beyond what any single video can cover. In the book, I explore all African ethnic groups, including mixed African populations, as well as its diaspora across the world. The link and more details are in description. Now let's get back to the video. To understand African diversity properly, we need to start from the very beginning. Modern humans, Homo sapien, first appeared in Africa around 300,000 years ago. From the very start, they already carried the full blueprint of humanity: our intelligence, creativity, emotional depth, and adaptability. But humanity did not remain a single unified population for long. Climate shift, migrations, genetic isolation, and adaptation began shaping early humans into different branches of the same tree. Over time, these branches became lineages, and these lineages are still alive today. Let's start with the first most basal African racial group, the Koisan racial lineage. The story of the Koisan begins at the very root of modern humanity, with genetic evidence revealing that their ancestors were among the first population of Homo sapiens to branch away from the rest of the human family tree between 150 and 200,000 years ago. While other human groups remain part of a shared ancestral pool, the ancestors of today's San and Khoikhoi were already following their own evolutionary path in southern Africa. For nearly 100,000 years, these populations remain relatively isolated, representing one of the largest, most continuous human populations on Earth and developing the highest level of genetic diversity found in any human group. This extreme antiquity was eventually followed by a deep geographical split that occurs in three major stages, beginning with an ancient north-south division roughly 30 to 40,000 years ago. Long before the arrival of farmers, the expansion of the Kalahari Desert acted as a climate barrier that divided the population into northern branch comprising like the Kwa, the Tu, the Naro, the Kwe, and Amkoe, who formed the Kalahari phenotypic cluster, and a southern branch that migrated towards the Drakensberg mountain of the African tip. This southern group, including the Tar speakers, the Xam, and the Komani, developed unique adaptations that resulted in the Karoid phenotype. While the isolated strand loopers, aka beachcombers, evolved into their own distinct physical characteristics due to different environmental pressures from the inland Karoids. Parallel to these southern developments, a third ghost branch of the Koisan once inhabited East Africa, stretching across modern-day Tanzania, Kenya, and Ethiopia. This lineage diverged from the southern groups nearly 50,000 years ago and was eventually absorbed by expanding Nilo-Saharan and Bantu populations, leaving only the Sandawe as the primarily genetic and linguistic remnant of this northernmost expansion. But the most famous internal diversion occurred only about 2,000 years ago when the traditional hunter-gatherer lifestyle of the San faced a massive cultural shift. In the region of modern-day Botswana, a group of Northern San speakers, likely related to the Khoi-Kwadi language family, encountered East African Cushitic herders and acquired sheep and cattle. This contact transformed their social structure from small egalitarian bands into larger hierarchical chiefdoms. This group are now known as the Khoi. While they remain fundamentally Koisan, these minor admixtures from East African Kushites created subtle genetic and physical distinction. They formed a phenotype known as the Koid, and had differences in terms of appearance such as taller height and lighter skin from their hunter-gatherer cousins. The second ones are the Bambutis, or the Central African hunter-gatherers, often called pygmies, represent another ancient branch of humanity with roots deep in Africa's past, with genetic studies suggesting that their ancestors diverged 70 to 120,000 years ago. Long before the rise of agriculture or kingdoms, these groups were already firmly established within from lineages that would become West African farmers and Bantu speakers between the Congo Basin. But their internal history was radically reshaped between 20 and 27,000 years ago by the shifting boundaries of the African rainforest during the last glacial maximum. As the Earth's climate cooled and dried, the massive forest fragmented into smaller, isolated refugia separated by stretches of savanna. This climatic isolation forced the ancestral population into primarily east-west split, where one group remained in the western Atlantic forest to become the ancestors of the Baka and Aka. This western lineage developed into a specific phenotype cluster known as the West Bambotid, while their cousins were isolated in the eastern montane forest near the Great Lakes. These eastern groups, including the Mboti, Efe, and Asua, evolved into the East Bambotid phenotypic cluster, and despite their shared adaptation to forest life, the 20,000 years of separation created significant genetic distinctions between these two primary clusters. As these basal groups adapted to the deep interior, a third distinct branch, known as the Southern Twa, followed a different evolutionary and migratory path that led them toward the mountains and lakeside forest of modern-day Rwanda, Burundi, Uganda, and the southern DRC. Unlike the more isolated Mboti, who stayed in the deep Ituri forest, the ancestors of the Twa lived along the forest edges, leading to a much stronger history of interactions with the early Bantu-speaking migrants. This prolonged contact and subsequent admixture resulted in the unique physical phenotype known as the Twa-Kwa, which distinguishes them from the more ancestral Bambotid forms. This transitional nature defined not only their genetics but also their social identity, as they emerged as a specialized class of potters, hunters, and musicians integrated within the broader agricultural societies. The third and most misunderstood African lineage are North Africans, often rejecting to being called African, or sub-Saharans rejecting them as being non-Africans, especially after the drama of AFCON. However, these perspectives are scientifically wrong. For a long time, scientists found consistent signals of a deeply distinct African ancestry in North African genomes that did not match modern sub-Saharan populations. But this genetic marker remained a ghost lineage with no DNA to verify its existence. Until recently, with new findings, this ghost African ancestry was found out to be the ancestral North Africans, a lineage that is now recognized as a foundational pillar of the continent's history, having likely diverged from other African populations somewhere between 70 to 100,000 years ago. During this era, the Sahara repeated shifted between green lush landscape and harsh deserts, creating environmental cycles that isolated North Africa from the rest of the continent while still allowing for intermittent contact. The clearest evidence for this lineage emerged from the Ibero-Mauritanian people of Tofalt in Morocco, dating back about 15,000 years. Genetic analysis revealed that these individuals carried a significant ancestral North African component, showing that the deep indigenous mixing has occurred long before recorded history. While modern North Africans are often classified as racially West Eurasians and resemble Middle Eastern or European people, this is not because that the ancestral North Africans were ethnically cleansed by outside groups like in America or Australia. Rather, it is due to North Africa's close proximity to Europe and the Near East, which facilitated multiple layers of West Eurasian migration and admixture. During the Neolithic, farmers from the Near East known as the Natufians arrived in the region and mixed with the ancestral North Africans, forming the Ibero-Mauritanians. Subsequent migrations of Anatolian farmers further transformed the landscape, and the merging of these three ancestries gave rise to modern Amazigh people. This complex heritage produced unique phenotypes in the region, such as the Berberid, characterized by distinct traits like slanting or pseudomonolid eyes, and the Libyeid, known for thin, elongated head shapes, traits that are unique among West Eurasians and to the region, reflecting a deep indigenous ancestral North African trace that persists to this day among Amazigh population as a surviving traits of Africa's third oldest lineage. But importantly, other than the Amazigh people, this lineage is found among the Fulanis and the extinct Gonchis, and in higher percentages among indigenous Saharan groups like the Tobu or Dawada. But there's another overlooked and often forgotten fourth oldest lineage, the East Africans. East African countries outside the Horn region are widely known for having a dominant Bantu demographic, and as a result, the indigenous people of East Africa are often forgotten. The East African hunter-gatherer lineage represents a pivotal chapter in human history because it lies closest to the population that gave rise to all non-Africans. Genetic evidence suggests that this lineage diverged from other African groups roughly 50 to 80,000 years ago, flourishing in the Rift Valley and the Ethiopian highlands. Unlike the Koisan, who remain relatively isolated, East African hunter-gatherer populations lived at a crossroads of migration and interaction. Today, the Hadza of Tanzania stand as the most pure remnant of this ancient core, having remained in the dry bushlands of the Eyasi Basin and avoided significant interbreeding for millennia. In contrast, the Sandawe, while sharing the same ancient East African hunter-gatherer foundation, diverged through admixture with a ghost Eastern San lineage related to Southern Africa. They later received minor pulses of Bantu and West Eurasian ancestry, producing the distinctive Sandawe phenotype seen today. In the north, the East African hunter-gatherer lineage encountered waves of Levantine farmers, leading to major highland divergence. The Omotic groups branched off through early mixture with small amount of West Eurasian ancestry, yet remain among the most indigenous populations of the Ethiopian highlands due to their exceptionally high East African hunter-gatherer related ancestry. Meanwhile, the Cushitic and Ethio-Semitic lineages emerged when East African hunter-gatherer base received substantial West Eurasian admixture, roughly 40 to 70%. Cushitic populations were the numerically dominant force in East Africa prior to the Bantu and Nilotic expansion, eventually dividing into 5 major ethno-linguistic clusters such as Northern, Central, Eastern Highland and Lowland, and Southern Cushites. Each developed distinct phenotypes shaped by varying degrees of genetic isolation and admixture between ancient hunters and Neolithic Near Eastern farmers. On the western frontier, some East African hunter-gatherers encountered expanding Nilo-Saharan populations. These interactions produced mystery groups like the Kunama, Gomos, Shabo, and Okiek, who retain strong East African hunter-gatherer genetic signatures but have been heavily influenced by Nilo-Saharan languages and ancestry through centuries of close contact. This resulted in genetic profiles distinct from both the isolated Hadza and the West Eurasian mixed Cushitic populations. Although most East African hunter-gatherer societies were eventually replaced or absorbed by incoming migrants, their genetic legacy remains deeply embedded as the foundational substrate of modern East African population, marking them as one of the most influential yet least visible lineages in human history. But the opposite is true for this lineage, the Niger-Congo racial line. The Niger-Congo story is often misunderstood because it blends deep genetic ancestry with a much more recent cultural expansion. The genetic foundation of Niger-Congo speaking population emerged between 50 and 70,000 years ago in West Africa, forming a lineage that survived long periods of climatic instability in forest and savanna refugia. This lineage developed independently from East African population involved in the out of Africa migration. The languages themselves diversified much later, likely between 10 and 15,000 years ago, as post-Ice Age climatic conditions allowed populations to expand. This diversification unfolded in 3 primary phases, beginning with the core West African split, in which the Proto-Niger-Congo population divided into foundational branches such as the Mande, Atlantic, and Volta-Niger groups. These ancestral populations, forebearers of peoples such as the Mandinka, Wolof, and Yoruba, developed distinct cultural identities centered in West African savanna, domesticating indigenous crops like African rice and yams. And around 5,000 years ago, a specific branch known as Benue Congo became established in what is now eastern Nigeria and western Cameroon, triggering a major demographic expansion. From within this branch, the Bantu emerged, mastering efficient agriculture and eventually ironworking technology. This created a demographic pressure cooker, as rapid population growth forced this branch to expand outward in 2 massive migratory streams that spread across East, Central, and Southern Africa, while their non-Bantu relatives largely remained in West Africa. As the Bantu expanded, they did not just simply replace local population, they absorbed them, creating a vast genetic mosaic of Bantu admixture and indigenous populations. This extraordinary mobility is the primary reason the Niger-Congo lineage is the most numerically dominant demographic in Africa and also one of the most phenotypically diverse. While the San remain largely in southern Africa and the Mbouti remain in the central forest, Niger-Congo speakers spread across every climatic zone on the continent, adapting biologically to each new environment. This process led to the emergence of multiple phenotypic patterns, such as the Congolid phenotype, common along forested edges in western and central tropical regions, is characterized by a thicker set stature and broader facial features. In the Sahel, we have the Sudanid phenotype, well suited to open semi-arid savanna landscape marked by tall stature, very long limbs, steep foreheads, jet black skin and muscular builds adapted to high heat environments. Then we have the Bantoid phenotype. The Bantoid phenotype is the most versatile, shaped by admixture across newly settled territories, but its original form is well adapted to open savannas, but are generally shorter and lighter than their northern Sudanid counterparts with robust bodies and more bulbous facial features. Our related and the youngest African lineage are the Nilo-Saharans. The Nilo-Saharan lineage emerged in a world that no longer exists, the Green Sahara. Long before it became a vast desert, this region was filled with rivers, lakes, and grasslands that supported dense human populations and allowed for a distinct Northeast African genetic cluster to emerge approximately 25 to 40,000 years ago. This lineage became the primary biological force in the Sudanic savanna. Archaeology reveals that these early Nilo-Saharans were expert fishers and hunters who left behind bone harpoons and distinctive waveline pottery, marking the height of an aquatic civilization. As the Sahara began to transition into a desert roughly 5 to 7,000 years ago, the population diversified into two major branches based on their environmental response, the Saharan and the Sudanic. The Saharan branch, or desert survivors, moved toward the Tibet Mountain and Lake Chad Basin, becoming the ancestors of groups like the Kanuri, Zahwa, and Tobo. Remaining in the Sahara, they occasionally interacted with ancestral North Africans and modern Amazigh populations, leading to a unique cultural and genetic shifts. Meanwhile, a massive southern branch moved towards the White Nile and the Sood marshlands, specializing into groups such as the Nubians, Daju, Surmik, and Fua, as well as the influential Nilotic people. At around 3 to 5,000 years ago, these populations transitioned from fishing to a hyper-specialized cattle herding lifestyle adopted from their Cushitic neighbors, eventually splitting into highland Nilotes like the Kalenjin, the plain Nilotes like the Maasai, and the western or river-like Nilotes such as the Dinka, Nuer, Shilluk, and Luo. A unique aspect of this diversion is the lack of outside admixture in Western Nilotic branch, while most Nilo-Saharan lineages mixed with West Eurasian or Bantu populations such as modern Nubians, Tubu, and Nilo-Hamitic groups like the Samburu and Maasai. The Luo, Dinka, Nuer, and Shilluk, as well as most Nilo-Saharans from South Sudan and Darfur region, remained genetically isolated in the swampy Sood region. This isolation allowed for the development and preservation of the distinct Nilotic phenotype, characterized by extreme height, extreme black skin, and lean elongated limbs perfectly evolved for heat dissipation in the open savanna. And there you have it, guys. African lineages explained. I'm pretty sure you'll never see Africans the same way after watching this video, as I've shattered the myth of a homogeneous Africa. And if you want to dig more about African people, check out my available book on Amazon. And as always, stay curious, stay smart, and thank you very much for watching.